There is a piece of paper somewhere between Washington and Tehran that both sides still call a ceasefire. Last night, for the second night running, they fired across it. The paper is still on the table, but nobody at that table can tell you who in Tehran is actually allowed to keep the promise written on it. That is the story tonight, a deal propped up by a signature that no longer has a living hand behind it. Here's why that reaches your week, not just theirs. When the United States and the Islamic Republic, the clerical regime that has run Iran since 1979, not the Iranian people, trade strikes, the first thing that moves is the price of oil. It jumped more than 3% on this news. About a fifth of the world's traded oil sails through one narrow channel at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. When ships stop crossing it, and they have, that shows up at the pump near you inside a fortnight. Your gasoline is quietly financing a fight you never voted on. 3 players could still save this deal. 2 of them can barely find a phone number in Tehran to call. Start with what the headline says and what it hides. The reporting is blunt. The US-Iran deal is under pressure, ceasefire efforts are unraveling, and both sides are exchanging strikes. Read as written, that sounds like 2 governments who changed their minds. Look closer. A government that changes its mind still has someone to change it. The likelier read is uglier. This deal is not dying because Tehran decided to walk away. It is dying because the desk that was supposed to enforce it is empty. That empty desk is the spine of everything on the board tonight, so let me name it plainly. The regime's supreme leader, the single cleric who held final say over war, peace, and any deal for more than 3 decades, is dead, killed, and this week his heirs finally tried to put him in the ground in Mashhad, the holy city in Iran's east. We tracked that burial as it was set. Here is the part the diplomats have not solved. A treaty needs a counterparty, a someone who can be held to a yes. Right now, Tehran cannot produce that someone. But the missing signature is not a quiet problem. It is a loud one, and it is spreading across the water. Follow the escalation itself. Wire reports describe attacks on Oman, strikes on US bases across Persian Gulf states, and warnings of more incidents in the strait. Traffic through Hormuz has plummeted. Shippers simply stop sailing. Notice the geography of the targets. Oman sits on the far side of the strait, the neutral back channel everyone uses to talk. Hitting the mailbox is what you do when you have given up on the mail. Reframe. Closing Hormuz is sold to the world as Iranian muscle. It is the opposite. As we argued last week, every day the strait stays choked, the world learns the reroute, the long way around, the other pipelines, the other sellers, and Tehran shrinks the one card it was trying to play. A man who burns his own house to prove he owns the matches has not shown you strength. He has shown you he has nothing left to sell but the fire. Therefore, watch who actually holds the valve, because it is not the diplomats. In Iran, war does not run through the foreign ministry. It runs through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, the regime's own ideological army, separate from Iran's regular military, with its own bases, its own budget, and now its own foreign policy. When the man at the top vanishes, the men with the guns do not wait for a committee to vote. They act and call it policy afterward. The strikes on the strait are the guard proving it still runs the country, while the succession fight is unsettled upstairs. And this is where the historical twin snaps into focus, and it is not the one everyone reaches for. Go back to Moscow, November 1982. The Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev dies. Over the next 2.5 years, the Kremlin buries 3 leaders in a row, and arms control talks with Washington simply freeze, not because Moscow refused to deal, but because no one in the Politburo had the standing to sign a deal that would outlast him. Diplomats flew in and found no counterparty. The Soviet state kept functioning, it just could not commit to anything. That interregnum, a superpower that could still shoot, but could no longer sign, is the exact machine we are watching in Tehran right now. A country that can launch a missile at 2 a.m. cannot honor a handshake at noon. The world tries to fill the empty desk with a name. The name on offer is Mojtaba Khamenei, the late leader's son, the man reporting increasingly casts as the heir. One analysis this week decoded the stakes bluntly, that if Washington fails to topple him, the Islamic Republic dominates the region. If he falls, Iran faces a leadership crisis. Notice the trap in that framing. It assumes there is a throne to take. Months of this board say otherwise. Rule by a committee nobody can see. Orders passed like notes under a door. The heir may be real. The enthronement is not. And an heir who cannot be crowned cannot sign either. He can only be blamed. Which is why the regime reached, this week, for the oldest tool a cornered state owns. Israeli and US media report a widened revenge list, a published enemies roster that now names not just an American president and an Israeli prime minister, but Italy's and France's leaders too. And when a president warned Tehran against any assassination attempt, one regional voice told reporters the regime does not take the threat seriously. Here's the pattern under the theater. A state that cannot manufacture a new leader will manufacture a new enemy, because enmity is cheaper and faster than legitimacy. You cannot vote a dead cleric's authority into his son overnight. You can, in an afternoon, publish a list of foreigners you have sworn to kill, and dare your own hardliners to call you weak. The revenge list is not a war plan. It is a job application. A faction inside a leaderless regime auditioning for the top by proving it hates the right people loudest. But the price of that audition is now being written into law abroad, and this is the beat nobody is saying out loud. Britain this week formally banned the IRGC as a terrorist organization, the same Revolutionary Guard that runs the strikes on Hormuz, and used the identical new powers on the same day to ban a Russian intelligence unit. London also outlawed 2 Iranian networks tied to anti-Semitic attacks on British soil. Watch what just happened structurally. A proscription is not a strongly worded letter. It is a legal door welding shut. The moment the Guard is a banned terror group in British law, any Western bank, any insurer, any diplomat who touches the deal touches a proscribed entity. Ceasefire the diplomats are trying to save just got a little more radioactive to save. And notice who Britain filed Tehran next to. Not a lone rogue or Russian spy service, in the same paperwork. Now, whenever the story reaches London, Minogue's instinct kicks in. Cui bono? Who benefits? Whose older hand is on this? His answer would run to the City of London, to a British design older than the regime itself. We will keep his reflex and ask for his receipt, because on this one, the paper trail runs the plainer way. 2 governments, 1 week, deciding the Islamic Republic and the Kremlin are now the same category of problem. That is not conspiracy. That is a filing decision, and it tells you the West has stopped treating Tehran as a negotiating partner and started treating it as a threat to be contained. Follow that thread to the money, because it closes the loop. The Financial Times and others report Iran and Russia are near finalizing a gas deal, and Tehran is preparing to host the Russian foreign minister, moves that, as one account put it, complicate the nuclear talks. Line it up. As Washington's deal unravels, Moscow's deal firms up. A regime that cannot sign a ceasefire with America is somehow ready to sign a gas contract with Russia. That is not a contradiction. It is a choice. The empty desk in Tehran is not empty to everyone. It just answers to a different capital now. That is the reporting. Here is our take. This deal cannot be saved, and the reason is not that anyone at the table wants it dead. The reason is that there is no longer a counterparty in Tehran with the authority to keep it. 3 reasons we hold that line. First, a treaty needs an author, and the regime just lost its only one. A committee that rules by hidden note cannot bind the Guard that fires the missiles. Second, the incentives all run the other way. A leaderless faction earns its standing by escalating, not by compromising. So every hardliner has a reason to sink the deal and none to save it. Third, the money has already moved. The gas deal with Moscow shows Tehran choosing the patron who asks no questions over the adversary who demands a signature it cannot give. The best counterargument is real, so we will say it. If Mujtaba Khamenei is formally, titularly, enthroned, crowned, named, undisputed, then a counterparty exists again, and this whole read weakens. That is exactly our falsifiable marker. We have said no single named figure gets that title before the 1st of September. If a real enthronement is announced before then, and a signed, filed agreement follows. We were wrong, and we will score it on this board in daylight. Stand back, and the whole map resolves into one uncomfortable line. The world spent this week arguing over whether a deal with Iran can be revived, and asked the wrong question. You cannot revive a contract with a party that has lost the power to promise. What is left on the table is not a negotiation. It is a machine running its last reflexes. Strike the strait, publish the list, sign with Moscow. Because reflexes are the only decisions a body can make after the head is gone. The tragedy is that a headless machine does not surrender, and it does not sign. It just keeps swinging until something outside it stops the arm. Clock on this feels less like a countdown and more like a wake that refuses to end. Watch the 1st of September. If by then no one wears the title and the strait is quietly sailing again while the revenge list gathers dust, you will know the machine's reflexes have outrun its story, loud, dangerous, and going nowhere. But do not end on the machine, because the machine is not Iran. Iran is the pharmacist in Shiraz who reopened his shutter this morning under a regime that cannot name its own leader. It is the students who know the difference between a country and the cartel squatting on it, who carry Cyrus and Pasargad in their heads, while the Akhund, the clerical establishment, never Islam itself, never the faith of ordinary people, burns the treasury on a war nobody chose. A regime that has to manufacture enemies abroad because it can no longer manufacture consent at home is telling you, in its own panicked handwriting, who has already won the argument. The signature Tehran cannot produce is the tell. One Iranians are writing, quietly, on their own future. That is the document to watch. If this map helped the week make sense, subscribe and tap like. It costs you nothing, and it tells us to keep drawing the board. The pieces are already moving. Subscribe, and let's see the next one before it lands.